I'm kind of forcing myself to do this video. Literally just clicked it there. I've not done anything all day. I've not done anything all day, and this is probably like the first thing I've done. And it's 8 o'clock. How the hell is it 8 o'clock? Um, I don't think I'll be able to get anything done, and I don't want to resign to the idea of doing nothing. But I have things written down here of like, this is what I want to do. I could probably get everything done by like 2 a.m., probably 3, and still be a happy man. But I don't know, I also like the idea of doing nothing as well. So that's kind of prevalent. Yesterday, for some ungodly reason, I don't know why, I decided to write romance. Gods be good. I I just decided to write some fantasy romance, and this I'm gonna say. I think I'm somebody who naturally wants to write a certain thing. Therefore, I'll reject writing other things because I already have my thing. But I can now understand, I think, a little bit more why people like Sanderson and fantasy writers just write. You know, like yesterday, I found myself writing like an obscene amount of words than I would for a day. And like genuinely an obscene amount of words. I didn't even think about the word count. You know, um, and it genuinely took me not even an hour. It was like I sat there for half an hour and just decided, you know what, I'm not having fun. And so I can understand why people write things that thick. You know, um, not saying it's easy, nothing like that. Obviously, I'm not going to be that guy, but I'm saying usually my mindset is perfect the story you have, right? And it's realistic. It's social. You know, it's now. You know, it's about trying to make now as real as possible and present the story of a person, the story of people, the story of pain. And I'm so caught up in the avant-gardeness of it all, right? Where I'm stressing about sentences and shit, and I'm like, you know, I'm just going through shit that I think will eventually grow to allow the process of being the writer I want to be, uh, improve improve eventually to that level of mastery. You know, I think I'll eventually try to think so much about this specific, like, I don't want to say niche, but type of the craft, you know, genre of the craft, to where I'll be really good at it. But like I found that through writing some other stuff, you know, there's this one. Let me pull it up on my Word doc real quick just to have a look at it. There's one story where essentially, wait, why does it say that? And why does that say that? One sec. Let me check that I've not gone crazy. Because I think I might have actually went and gone crazy. But yeah, I found myself writing something else for class not too long ago. And I think I already mentioned it in a video. Wow, it's not even pulling up the word. Oh, wait, it is. Oh, wow. So it's not even an obscene amount of words. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of words. Um, where is it? Here. Yeah. We had to write something from the perspective of a spinach. And I thought this was fucking ridiculous. So then I decided, what if I write, you know, the character believe that it is ridiculous and you know, I think three projects I've sort of interacted with, which are really vastly different from what I usually interact with recently, have been writing this romance for no reason. Um, the Yeti story and the that one, right? The critique of the spinach. The idea of it being maybe from the guy like linked with the Yeti universe, and my laptop might die. Being linked from the Yeti universe, and sort of just having fun with the idea of writing, and very low stress, because when the avant-garde shit happens, it's like, oh wow, I need to be a great writer. But when I look at this sort of stuff, right, and here comes the actual offense, is when I start writing some of this stuff. When I was writing that fantasy story yesterday, I genuinely, I genuinely like read a line and I was like, that's just really basic. And then I'd sat and thought about it, and I thought about how, well, I've read that in Sanderson. I've read that before. So it may be a little bit basic, but it's not like it's not been used, you know? It's not like I can never use it. So I looked at it and I just thought, okay, the basic sentence. But, for a moment sort of questioned, well, its place in this piece of writing. Does it actually take from the tone, or does it work? And I thought, well, it's still allowing me to see through a certain perspective, a certain lens, and it continued the tone, and it continued the theme and the topic of especially, the specific excerpt of what I was trying. And I thought, you know what? This is why these fantasy writers, in my opinion, could do so well to write huge amounts. Is I think they just sort of take what they're about to write and they just write it, you know? And it's nothing, also my hair, dreadful. They just take what they're about to write and write it, you know? Because I took it from the perspective of, okay, I had an idea of a man on horseback rides and finds a woman completely naked. And he thinks she's the most beautiful woman he's ever seen in her entire life, but he doesn't have the courage to help her out. So it's the men he's riding with who helps her out. And I was like, okay. So then I ended up eventually developing like, okay, well, this guy's the king. Why is he the king? I don't know. Why does he live? I don't know. Why was he on a horse? I eventually started like, plot it all out, and I was like, you know what? Genuinely, like, just write that type of shit. Anyone, or do writing exercises like that, and don't worry about it being like avant-garde, because sometimes writing, you have to remember is that the process is fun. And I genuinely realized that, okay, well, if I want to continue writing this seriously, what I would eventually do is I would go through the progression of the story, um, and I would really hone and think and well, scrutinize beyond repair each sentence, each paragraph that leads on to the next, and eventually to where I wanted to write next. I was like, well, I wanted to be in the throne room, and I want him to be shy, but he's the king, and she is also shy because he's the king. Not shy, more or less, just like doesn't want her head taken off. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna write anything else. I'm not gonna write anything else. So I was writing. I mean, it was a lie because I was writing a description of the castle. Yeah, I was writing a description of the city walls, and so on. And I was like, you know what? Bored. I'm just gonna write about the romance, which is madness. But I thought, I'm bored. It's like literally 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, well, I just, I got some work done. I'd finished reading this book, I'd maybe read like 3/4. It's not big, so like 3/4 of it like throughout the day, and I thought, fuck me, the effort that took, like mentally, you know. Sometimes I was focused for like 2 hours, and then, which I read really slowly. And then for like there were certain times where I would just start doom scrolling and be like, damn, and then start reading again, really into it, and then 5 minutes of just like thinking about nothing, and then going back into it. And yeah, eventually I just caught myself writing, and yeah, you have to recognize that the whole thing about writing is that it's fun. I wanted to write the romance thing because I didn't want to be horny necessarily. You know, I was like, you know what? Don't even want to be horny right now. It's not the point. I'm like, oh, but what I do want is a bit of romance. You know, everybody wants a bit of romance. Everybody likes a bit of romance. I think some people out there can be freaky deaky, and it's like, well, hold up, let's not do this right now. You know, shout out to every woman in existence. Apparently, um, why do we love smut so much? I get it. I get romance, but like you know, just don't be too freaky deaky. And so I thought, well, I'm not gonna write freaky deakiness. I'm just gonna write like a character and just sort of see where he clashes with this other character. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna make him a bit younger. Then he's gonna be a young king. I was like thinking about the Black Prince, you know, and I've been doing quite a lot of reading recently about, well, not specifics. So my knowledge is quite broad, and I generally don't remember any of it. But I've been doing like quite a lot of recent reading on Newcastle, and it seems that I've been looking at it through different perspectives of different kings and different times of, you know, whether it be medieval or industry or whatever, and you know, just reminded me of different places and times. And the Black Prince was something that I'd got onto. You know, him going down to Spain, not getting no Dora, coming back up dying. Bit of music. So I'll end this in a minute. What song is that? Some poppy song. Yeah. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna write like this dude who I guess is shy. Thought, hey, just write like a thing, you know, right? Being shy around women, natural. It was fun. It was fun, you know. And I think and you know, if I wanted to actually write it, I would go ahead and just start plotting things down, and they're already in my head, so they're stirring. And I think that the whole point of this is that, like, my biggest stuff, my Newcastle stuff, my Steinbeckian social realism, like my avant-garde bullshit, right? My work, my life's work, is my life's work. But writing shouldn't be a process that kills the person who's doing it. I don't think it should. I think there's a difference between somebody thinking writing is the easiest thing of all time and they just la da da la di di, doesn't make sense. But then there's also like, don't kill yourself over your writing. So I think there's a middle ground, you know, middle ground of like, take your shit seriously, do it with a large amount of effort and thought behind it, but then also have fun with it. And I think certain stories require less fun than others. Certain stories you have to really be there mentally, whereas, you know, other stories you can have fun. And I think sometimes you gotta let yourself have fun, right? Like for me, I always sort of keep it in the back pocket, but that's not a pocket. I keep it in the back pocket that I know that my if I get stressed with my avant-garde stuff, right, I can just stop. You know, I could just stop and write something fun. And I think I know I'll never be the greatest fantasy writer of all time, so the stress is off. I know I'll never be a great romance, a thriller, a crime, a, you know what. I know like these aren't my forte. So whenever I write these, I do it with sci-fi. I do it with like just fun, you know. And I think that's naturally what sci-fi writers did when they were younger, and fantasy writers and so on. You know, it was fun to them, and eventually it becomes a career path, and they end up loving it. Right? I know this is something that happens, and like somebody asked me, would you want to write sci-fi in the future? Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not too stressed about it, but it's not my it's not my thing that I'd uphold. It's more or less a thing where I'd be like, oh, have I got free time? Like, yeah, cool. Let's mess about with this. I think you have to have that. You really do have to have that. And the idea of it is just fun. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. I look at it and I think, okay, well, how do I make this general of a coalition of the sort of far western world, the Americas, and explain how and why they burned specific books, just like the Nazis did. But through obviously his perspective in some sort of literary critique, because I think the people in the society would find themselves, well, intellectually high, and they would need to reflect that through their writing. So I thought, well, let's make him write something then. Let's critique writing and say why they were burned, and be it rant-esque, yeah, but there was no thought behind the idea of like, why would the character do this? Is it necessary? Who cares? I just want to write. And I think sometimes you just need them projects. You just get those projects where you know what? Who cares? I'm writing this, and you figure it out. And it's fun, Who cares whether or not I want to write a story about a Yeti, Well, to be fair, it's kind of a lie because half the story's not even with a Yeti, but who cares if I want to write a story about critique of some writing? Who cares if I want to write a romance fantasy, a romantasy? Who cares? To me, these aren't the things that I've put my effort and energy into. If I got a book rejected and it was one of these things, I would just sort of say, oh, fair enough. And if I won the prize as well at the same time, I wouldn't be like, oh my days, I'm the greatest. I'd be like, cool. Back to my usual stuff, because sometimes there's just writing that you have to do for fun, and I think that's like a beautiful aspect of writing. Is yeah, we overstress and we think that okay, this piece needs to be good, and yeah, I'll agree with you, it does need to be good. But there's certain writing in which you can take your hand off of that wheel and say, let's have some fun, when you start journaling and stuff, you don't start critiquing the grammar. So it's the same sort of thing. Just well, I'm not really too bothered about all these metrics. I'm just gonna enjoy writing this story. And I think eventually you'll get really good at it. But don't like. That's what kids did. As kids sort of start writing and they get better that way. But I'm talking about the realm of these things aren't your forte and they'll never be your forte. It's just fun, right? Because it's fun. Sometimes that's refreshing and it's needed. I don't know. I don't think it's much complex than that. I don't really want to keep talking. So, don't write Lord of the Rings. Just enjoy writing fantasy. Sometimes. If you write avant-garde shit, if you write fantasy shit, sometimes just enjoy writing a very serious poem about, World War II or some shit. I don't know. Enjoy stuff, innit?